What is the price of joy? In a world of struggle, a moment of pure, untainted happiness is more precious than gold. But what if you could bottle it? What if you could keep it on a shelf and take it down whenever the world grew dark? This is the story of a family that found a jar full of ancestral laughter, a cure for modern sorrow. But they forgot the first rule of spirits: nothing is ever given. It is only ever traded. And the currency for borrowed joy is fresh pain. Nozipho's family was drowning in gray. Her father's long illness had ended, leaving a house hollowed out by medical debt and quiet despair. At the grim gathering after the burial, her uncle Bekamuzi, a traveler who dabbled in oddities, pulled her aside. "Your father was my brother. He was also the saddest man I ever knew. He forgot how to laugh long before he died. This," he said, pressing a plain, reddish clay pot into her hands, "is for you. It's a memory jar. From our great-great-grandmother, Nomalanga the Joyful. They say she laughed so hard and so purely, the sound could make crops grow. When she died, a wise woman caught her final, happiest breath in this clay. Tap it. Gently." Skeptical but desperate for any light, Nozipho took the pot to her room. That night, in the crushing silence, she tapped it with a spoon. The sound wasn't music. It was laughter. A woman's laughter, rich, full, unfettered, and utterly contagious. It echoed in the small room, and against her will, Nozipho felt her own mouth twitch into a smile. Then a chuckle. Then she was laughing along, tears of grief becoming tears of cathartic release. For 3 minutes, the weight was gone. It was a miracle. She shared it with her weary mother, Tandy, and her cynical younger brother, Lucanio. The sound thawed their frozen hearts. The joy jar became a secret ritual. Bad day at work? Tap the jar. Family argument? Tap the jar. It was a reset button for the soul. But the first rule, whispered by Uncle Bekamuzi, was strict: once a day. Never more. And never, ever ask it for a specific memory. It gives what it wants to give. For weeks, they were disciplined. The jar was a blessing. Nozipho got a promotion, her charm rekindled by her newfound lightness. Tandy started gardening again. Lucanio, an aspiring musician, began writing songs that weren't just angry. But then, Lucanio had a crushing audition rejection. Once wasn't enough. He tapped the jar twice in one night. The second laugh was different. Just as joyful, but longer. And after it faded, Lucanio didn't just feel better. He felt euphoric, invincible. He brushed off the rejection with a wave. Their loss, he declared, his confidence bordering on arrogance. Nozipho noticed the change in him. She also noticed the jar itself seemed warmer to the touch afterwards. And the red clay looked slightly darker, almost glazed with a faint sheen where it had been dull before. Trouble arrived with their cousin, Sianda, a perpetually jealous and sour young man who always thought the family favored Nozipho's branch. He heard the laughter during a visit, forced the story out of Lucanio, and became obsessed. He demanded a turn. Desperate to keep the peace, Nozipho let him tap it. Sianda's laugh was mean and mocking. The jar's laughter in response was different again, sharper, almost teasing. Sianda left not joyful, but strangely agitated, a cruel grin on his face. That night, he picked a vicious fight with his boss online and got fired. He claimed he felt liberated. Nozipho sought out Uncle Bekamuzi for answers. She found him older and more serious than she remembered. "You broke the rule," he said, not with anger, but with dread. "The jar doesn't just play laughter, Nozipho. It invites. You are inviting the spirit of Nomalanga's joy to witness your life. And joy is not a passive thing. To stay vibrant, it needs to feed. On contrast. On fresh sorrow. Your small daily troubles were appetizers. Your brother's rejection was a bigger meal. Your cousin's bitterness, that was a feast. The jar is awake now. And it will get hungry. Nozipho raced home, but it was too late. The hunger had begun. The jar started acting on its own. It would emit a soft, giggling sound in the dead of night, waking the household. Objects associated with past family arguments would break, a picture frame from a feud, a gifted vase from a fallen-out friend. The jar was clearing space, removing sorrowful objects. Worse, it began to curate their joy. Nozipho found herself laughing uproariously at a stranger's minor misfortune. Tandy giggled uncontrollably when she heard a neighbor's pet had died. Their joy was becoming tied to the misery of others. The purer the external sorrow, the more potent their borrowed laughter felt. Lucanio, who used the jar the most, was the most changed. He was now wildly, manically creative, but his songs were full of biting satire that ruined reputations. He laughed at everything, especially pain. He stopped visiting his grieving friends. Nozipho tried to hide the jar. It would reappear on the kitchen table. She tried to give it back to Uncle Bekamuzi. He refused to touch it. It's bonded to your family's emotional field now. It thinks it's helping. It's weeding the garden of your lives, pulling up all the sadness so only joy can grow. But it doesn't understand that you need some sadness. It's the soil. The final straw was the laughter during the day. Without being tapped, the jar began to laugh softly whenever a family member felt a pang of genuine sadness, a memory of their father, a moment of loneliness. It was mocking their grief, trying to drown it out. Their own natural sorrow was becoming its enemy. And the jar was growing. Not in size, but in presence. The clay now looked wet, glossy. The laughter was richer, deeper, but with an undercurrent of something demanding. More, it seemed to sigh after each peal. More contrast. The jar orchestrated its own banquet. It drew Sianda, the fired and bitter cousin, back to the house. He came, seething with envy over Nozipho's promotion and Lucanio's viral, mean-spirited songs. A huge argument erupted in the living room, shouting, accusations, years of buried resentment exploding. And in the center of it, on the coffee table, the jar sat. As the anger peaked, the jar began to tremble. Then, it laughed. Not a recorded laugh. A live, reactive, gluttonous laugh that fed on the fury in the room. With each shout, the laugh grew louder, more decadent. The family stopped, horrified, staring at the pot. From its open mouth, a faint, shimmering haze began to form, the shape of a woman's smiling face, made of dust and light. Nomalanga's joy, no longer a memory, but an active, hungry echo. The spirit spoke, its voice the sound of tinkling bells and breaking glass. Yes. This is the flavor. The spice. Joy tastes of nothing without tears to season it. Give me more. Fight. Hate. Grieve. So I may be merry. It had become a parasite, provoking sorrow to sustain its own eternal celebration. Lucanio, whose connection was deepest, was the first to be consumed. Enraged at the spirit's mockery, he grabbed the jar to smash it. The moment he touched it, the laughing spirit flowed up his arm like liquid light. His body locked. His face twisted into a perfect, permanent, grotesque replica of the jar's laughter, a wide, rictus grin, eyes wide with horror. He was frozen, a living statue of hysterical joy, while inside, he was screaming. Nozipho screamed. Tandy fainted. Sianda, in his terror and spite, saw an opportunity. It wants sorrow? I'll give it a masterpiece. He snatched a kitchen knife, aiming not at the jar, but at Nozipho, to create the ultimate tragic scene for the spirit to feast on. As Sianda lunged, Uncle Bekamuzi burst through the door. He had felt the spiritual cataclysm. He didn't carry herbs or charms. He carried a small, ugly, lopsided clay bowl, the first, failed pot Nomalanga the Joyful had ever made as a child. It held the memory of her frustration, her imperfection. "You want the full spectrum?" Bekamuzi shouted at the shimmering spirit. "You want the real Nomalanga? Not just your cherry-picked joy? Here she is." He slammed the ugly little bowl down next to the glorious joy jar. The effect was instantaneous. The laughing spirit recoiled as if burned. The two pots, one of perfect joy, one of flawed effort, resonated against each other. A discordant, terrible sound filled the room, laughter mixed with sobs, triumph mixed with frustration. The full, complex, human emotional record of their ancestor. The shimmering spirit writhed in confusion. It was being forced to remember it was not just joy. It was a person. A person who had also known doubt, anger, and failure. In that moment of its existential crisis, the bond weakened. The hold on Lucanio broke. He collapsed, sobbing, his face returning to normal, etched with trauma. The spirit focused its rage on Bekamuzi. It streamed toward him, a vortex of furious, toxic happiness. "You spoil the feast." Bekamuzi stood his ground. "The feast is over, Auntie. You've forgotten what it means to be real. Time to rest." He did something then that broke every rule. He didn't try to destroy the jar. He picked up the ugly bowl, and with a prayer for wholeness, he brought it down, smashing it directly into the joy jar. There was no explosion. There was a consumption. The two clays, one of perfect joy, one of flawed struggle, merged upon impact. The glorious red clay absorbed the rough brown clay. The laughter cut off, replaced by a profound, ringing silence. Then, a single, clear, beautiful note hung in the air, which slowly resolved into a woman's voice, gentle and tired. "Oh, my children. What have you done? And what have I done?" Then, silence. True silence. The spirit was gone. The jars were now one. A single, marred, composite pot, neither beautiful nor ugly. Just, complete. The aftermath was one of recovery. Lucanio needed therapy to be able to experience simple pleasure again without fear. Tandy moved to a smaller house, wanting no reminders. Sianda, shaken, actually apologized and sought help for his bitterness. Nozipho kept the composite pot. It sits on her shelf, silent. It will never laugh again. But sometimes, on the anniversary of her father's death, or after a truly hard day, she'll run a finger around its rim. And she won't hear laughter. But she'll feel a wave of something better, empathy. A deep, wordless understanding that all emotions have their place, and that a joy that fears sorrow is a monster. Uncle Bekamuzi explained the final lesson. "We tried to isolate the best part of our ancestor and worship it. But you can't cage one emotion. It becomes a hungry ghost." Nomalanga wasn't joyful despite her sorrows. Her joy was meaningful because of them. The jar is quiet now because it's finally whole. Nozipho's family sought to bottle happiness and found an addiction. They learned that joy, when divorced from the full human experience, becomes a predatory thing. A ghost that feeds on the very pains that give joy its context. They have peace now. But it is a sober peace, earned through terror. They know now that the brightest laughter often casts the darkest shadow. And that some ancestral gifts are best left not as tools, but as quiet lessons in the clay of who we are. So, what do you think? Was the family foolish to use the jar, or was the ancestors' spirit itself corrupted by their misuse? Is it wrong to seek pure, effortless joy, even if it comes at a hidden cost? Let me know in the comments below. This is the conclusion of this tale. If you are haunted by stories of emotions made flesh, then you must see the story of the sailor who rode the whispers of the wind. The link is on the screen now. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more tales from the Safari of Tales. Until next time, feel what you feel. All of it. That's what keeps the ghosts away.